Hi. I'm sure you've all heard of climate change before. It's an issue the entire world has to deal with, and which generations to come will as well. Since climate change is a global issue, I previously thought making adjustments to my lifestyle wouldn't change anything, and I was right. But if we all make changes to our lifestyle, we can. I'm Stephanie Thorne, and this is Hannah Tang. We're seniors at Albany High School and members of the environmentally focused EDSET program at our school. And for our end of the year project, we're going to share some ways you can lower your carbon footprint and hopefully help slow climate change.
What do these all have in common? All have a carbon footprint. What is a carbon footprint? A carbon footprint is the carbon output associated with any activity that one does. On average, the U.S. citizen has a carbon footprint of 20 metric tons, which is 5 times the size of the world's average. Some greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, occur naturally and are emitted to the atmosphere through natural processes and human activities. Other greenhouse gases, such as fluorinated gases, are created and emitted solely through human activities.
Two of the principal greenhouse gases that enter the atmosphere because of human activities are carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide enters the atmosphere through the burning of fossil fuels, solid waste, trees, and wood products, and also as the result of other chemical reactions. Methane is emitted during the production and transport of coal, natural gas, and oil. Methane emissions also result from livestock and other agricultural practices and by the decay of organic waste in municipal solid waste landfills.
Why should we care about our carbon footprint? Greenhouse gases enter the atmosphere and trap heat. As they build up, it will gradually increase the global temperature and thus accounts for global climate change. According to the World Wildlife Fund, average global temperatures are expected to rise between 1.4 and 5.8 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. Simulations project that a 4 degrees Celsius rise in temperature would cause nearly all of the world's glaciers to melt. Continued and widespread melting of glaciers during this century will lead to floods and water shortages for millions of people.
So, is it possible to have a no-carbon footprint? According to a study by MIT, while it may seem surprising that even people whose lifestyles don't appear extravagant, such as the homeless monks and children, they are responsible for significant greenhouse gas emissions. One major factor is the array of government services that are available to everyone in the United States. These basic services, including police, roads, libraries, and the court system, and the military, were allocated equally to everyone in the country in this study. This means the lowest possible carbon footprint for a person in the United States, which is calculated for a homeless person who sleeps in a homeless shelter and eats in a soup kitchen, is 8.5 metric tons of carbon outputs per year. This is more than double the world average of 4.
So what can we do to help? The 3 main human activities that account for our carbon footprint are our housing, transportation, and diet. With a few lifestyle changes, we can lower our carbon footprint and be part of a movement to make a difference. Would it be economically feasible to make these changes? Well, that's what we set out to discover.
A main contributor to our carbon footprint is from the energy consumption associated with housing. A large portion of this is from energy used to heat or cool a home. There are 2 main ways to reduce this usage.
So if you don't have proper insulation, your heating bill is definitely going to be a lot higher. And that's what's noticed all the time when someone buys an older home, especially if it's maybe older than 50 years old. And the bill will be a lot higher than any of the new homes that are well insulated. Insulation, if you want to put in a house, is very cheap. Assuming it's when the house is open and under construction, or if you're remodeling. As soon as you expose a wall in a house, you want to always insulate, and you'll save more than the cost of that insulation probably each year.
Another energy-saving option is to replace single-pane windows with double.
The double-pane windows are a lot better insulating than the single-pane windows, and there's a way to measure the heat loss that's transferred through glass, and it's the airspace in a double-space window that really helps. So you don't really notice any difference between single and double pane when you're looking at it, but it is a lot less conductive to the heat. And so you'll save, as a matter of fact, double pane windows now are less expensive than single pane windows.
As Steve says, double pane windows are now less expensive than single pane windows. This is because the California Building Code now mandates double-pane windows in new homes. Window manufacturers then started making much fewer single-pane windows and only made double-pane, which increased the supply, thus creating a surplus and causing the price of the windows to drop. Although there is an upfront cost to installing both insulation and double-pane windows, they will pay themselves off within a short period of time, making both these options economically feasible. Another main contributor to our carbon footprint is transportation. Almost a fifth of our carbon footprint comes from the emissions and fuel use associated with transportation. One of the largest contributors that we use every day is cars. So, if we take away this output source, it will lower our footprint. Here are some zero-emission options to driving a car.
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle.
So I got rid of my car and rode my bike instead of the car for over a year. So not having a car for a year was a fantastic choice. My office is in Berkeley, and I live in the Rockridge area in Oakland, and back and forth on bike is actually faster than a car, and it's much more enjoyable.
Steve Thorne used to spend $400 a month on insuring his car and keeping it running. For the year Steve biked, he paid about $40 on maintenance for the entire year. This means biking cost Steve less than 1% of the cost of owning a car. By not using a car, Steve was able to enjoy his commute, save money, and lower his carbon footprint. The final contributor to our carbon footprint is our diet. Hannah and I went to our local farmers market at the El Cerrito Plaza to compare the prices and distance the food had to travel of oranges, nectarines, cherries, basil, potatoes, green beans, and cucumbers to those of a large supermarket, Lucky. At the farmers market, every vendor had a sign telling where their farm was located. The farthest farm for the produce we compared was in Fresno's, while for Lucky's, the closest farm, the produce we compared was from Fresno. This means on average the produce had to travel more from the farm to shelf for Lucky's than for the farmers market. The longer distance travels means the larger carbon footprint. The only foods that were cheaper at Lucky's were cucumbers and green beans, and the price difference was only a penny. The rest were cheaper to buy at the farmers market. Through our sample, we found that shopping at a farmer's market not only lowers our carbon footprint, but is economically feasible, if not cheaper, for most produce. But an even more effective way to reduce our carbon footprint is to reduce or cut out entirely our meat consumption. Not eating meat once a week is more effective than even buying all local foods. The carbon footprint of meat comes from the raising, transporting, and producing of the livestock. According to the Environmental Working Group, the U.S. produced 208 pounds of meat per person in 2009. Say a person only consumed beef as their source of meat for an entire year. This would contribute 3,078.4 pounds of carbon dioxide for that year. Say that same person ate soybeans instead of meat. This would contribute only 54.6 pounds of carbon dioxide for that year. Of course, we know someone isn't going to just eat soybeans as their source of protein for a year, but by eating just 4 normal vegetarian meals a week, one could save about $300 to $400 per year. Following these steps, we can help lower our carbon footprint.
And along the way, we can save money in the long run. We're gonna save the world and save money.